I'm Sarah, I'm 45 years old, and last week I found out that my entire marriage was a long con designed to steal my family legacy. I didn't just catch my husband cheating, I caught him erasing my existence. Before I tell you how I turned the tables on him and the woman he introduced as his fiancée, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know who has my back on this one. You know, they say ignorance is bliss. But I think ignorance is actually just a ticking time bomb. You're sitting on it, comfortable and warm, until the moment it blows your life into a million jagged little pieces. It was supposed to be a surprise. That was the irony that kept playing over and over in my head later that night. I was the one trying to surprise him. It was our 15th wedding anniversary. 15 years. That's a lifetime. That's enough time to build a home, to bury parents, to grow gray hairs together. Or so I thought. Mark had told me he was working late. The grind never stops, babe, he'd said that morning, kissing my forehead before jumping into the Mercedes I paid for. He was a real estate developer, or at least, that's what his business card said. In reality, he was a man who was very good at spending money and not very good at making it. But I loved him. I loved him with that blind, stupid devotion that makes you overlook the late nights and the constant need for capital injections from my savings. I decided to surprise him at Le Monarch. It's this incredibly pretentious, French fusion bistro in downtown Charleston. It's the kind of place where the menu doesn't have prices and the waiters look at you like you're trespassing if you're not wearing designer labels. I wasn't wearing designer labels. I was wearing my best dress, sure, a navy blue wrap dress I'd had for 5 years, but I'd spent the morning dealing with plumbing issues at the estate. I probably still smelled faintly of lavender soap and old copper pipes. I walked in, clutching a small gift bag. Inside was a vintage watch I'd spent 6 months saving for. I scanned the room, looking for a table in the back where Mark usually held his business dinners. The hostess tried to stop me. "Ma'am, do you have a reservation?" "My husband is already seated," I said, smiling. "Mark Jenkins." Her face did this weird twitch. Like a glitch in the Matrix. "Oh. Mr. Jenkins. He's in the private alcove. Area 4. I thanked her and walked past the bar. The lights were dim, amber and soft, designed to make everyone look beautiful and rich. My heart was actually fluttering. I was excited. I thought, we'll have a nice dinner, we'll laugh about how hard we've been working, and maybe we can finally talk about that vacation to Italy. I turned the corner to the alcove. Time didn't stop. That's a cliché people use in movies. Time didn't stop, it sharpened. It became razor sharp, slicing through every delusion I'd held for 15 years. There was Mark. He was wearing his charcoal gray suit, the custom one I bought him for his birthday last year. He looked handsome. Dashing, even. His hair was gelled back, his smile was wide and dazzling. And he was on one knee. He was holding a small, black velvet box. Inside, glittering under the recessed lighting, was a diamond ring. A massive, cushion-cut diamond. Sitting across from him was a girl. She couldn't have been more than 26. She had that effortless, expensive look, shiny blonde blowout, skin that had never known a day of hard labor, and a dress that probably cost more than my car. Her hands were over her mouth. She was crying happy tears. Yes, she was whispering. "Oh my God, Mark, yes." I stood there. I felt the blood drain from my face, rushing down to my feet like someone had pulled a plug. My hands went numb. The gift bag with the vintage watch felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Mark was sliding the ring onto her finger. I didn't scream. I didn't faint. A cold, terrifying clarity washed over me. I took 3 steps forward. My heels clicked on the polished concrete floor. Click. 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 Mark heard it. He turned his head. The color didn't just leave his face, it vanished. He looked like a corpse that had been propped up in a suit. His eyes went wide, filled with a primal, animalistic terror. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He actually dropped the ring box. It clattered on the table, a harsh plastic sound in the romantic quiet. The girl, Chloe, I'd later learn her name was, looked up. She saw Mark's face, then she turned to look at me. She looked confused. Not guilty. Just confused. She wiped a tear from her cheek and tilted her head. "Honey," she said to Mark, her voice trembling with emotion. Then she looked at me, scanning my older dress, my sensible shoes, my messy bun. She looked back at Mark and asked the question that would haunt me for the rest of my life. "Mark, is this your sister?" The air left my lungs. Sister? My husband of 15 years. The man I shared a bed with. The man whose debts I paid. The man who swore to love me in sickness and in health. He hadn't just cheated on me. He had rewritten my entire identity. To this girl, I wasn't the betrayed wife. I was the sibling. The obstacle. The family baggage. Mark scrambled to his feet, knocking over his wine glass. A dark red stain spread across the white tablecloth like a gunshot wound. "Sarah," he choked out. "Sarah, wait. Don't make a scene." "Sister?" I repeated. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Low. Raspy. Dangerous. Chloe stood up, looking concerned. She actually reached out a hand toward me. "Oh, hi. Mark told me you might stop by eventually, but I didn't think. I mean, he said you were at the facility." The facility? My brain was firing on all cylinders now. He told her I was his sister. He told her I was in a facility. He had painted a picture of me as some invalid, some burden he was taking care of. I looked at Mark. He was sweating profusely. "Chloe, baby, just give us a second," he stammered. "No," I said. I stepped right up to the table. I looked at the ring on Chloe's finger. It looked familiar. Wait. I squinted. That wasn't just any diamond. That was my grandmother's setting. He had told me it was stolen during a break-in 2 years ago. I had cried for weeks over that ring. I reached out and grabbed Chloe's hand. She gasped and tried to pull away, but I held firm. "That's a beautiful ring," I said. "Thank you," Chloe stammered, looking at Mark for help. He just proposed." "Did he?" I looked at Mark. He was shaking his head at me, his eyes pleading, begging me to play along. "Please," his eyes said. "Don't ruin this." The audacity was breathtaking. I dropped Chloe's hand. I looked her dead in the eye. "He didn't buy that ring, sweetie," I said. "And I'm not his sister." "What?" Chloe frowned, looking between us. "But Mark said his wife died 5 years ago. He said you were his sister, Sarah. The one with the episodes." Dead silence. My wife died. I was the crazy sister. With episodes. Something inside me snapped. But it wasn't a snap of hysteria. It was the snap of a lock falling into place. The Sarah who sacrificed everything was gone. The Sarah who stood in that bistro was someone new. Someone lethal. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Episodes," I said. "Is that what he calls them? Interesting." I leaned in close to Mark. I could smell his expensive cologne, Santal 33, another gift from me. "I'm the wife," I said, loud enough for the tables nearby to hear. "I'm the wife who paid for this suit. I'm the wife who paid for this dinner." I turned to Chloe. "And I'm the wife who owns the house he's been sleeping in with you." Chloe looked like she had been slapped. Her mouth fell open. She looked at Mark. "Mark? What is she talking about?" Mark found his voice. She's having an episode, Chloe. I told you. She gets confused. She thinks we're married. It's part of her delusion. Sarah, please, let's go to the car. He tried to grab my arm. I pulled back and slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed through the restaurant. The music seemed to stop. Every eye was on us. Don't touch me, I hissed. And don't you dare come home tonight. Because if you set foot on my property, I will have you arrested for trespassing. I turned around. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, but I kept my head high. I walked out of that alcove. I walked past the bar. I walked past the hostess who was staring at me with her mouth agape. I walked out into the cool night air, got into my beat-up Ford Explorer, and sat there for a full minute, just breathing. He had told her I was his crazy sister. He had told her I was in a facility. He was going to marry her. While married to me. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I didn't see a crazy woman. I didn't see a victim. I saw a woman who had just been handed a weapon. He thought I was weak. He thought I was stupid. He was about to find out just how wrong he was. Before I tell you what happened when he followed me home, and trust me, you won't believe the lies he tried to spin, I need you to understand what my life was like 48 hours before that dinner. I need you to understand why I didn't see it coming. My life was Willow Creek Estate. It's a beautiful, sprawling property about 40 minutes outside the city. It belonged to my grandmother. It has weeping willows that brush the surface of a private lake, a historic barn that dates back to the 1800s, and a main house that requires constant love and money. When I inherited it, it was falling apart. Mark wanted me to sell it immediately. It's a money pit, Sarah, he had said. Think of the condo we could buy downtown. Think of the lifestyle. But I couldn't. It was my heritage. So, I turned it into a wedding venue. For the last 10 years, my life has been other people's happily ever afters. I spent my days in rubber boots, hauling crates of flowers, arguing with caterers, and soothing nervous brides. I managed the bookings, the finances, the repairs, the cleaning, everything. And Mark? Mark was the face. He liked to stroll through the weddings in his linen suits, shaking hands with the fathers of the brides, handing out his business cards. He told everyone he was a property developer and that Willow Creek was just one of his projects. I let him say it. I let him take the credit. Why? Because I loved him. And because I knew his ego was fragile. His own real estate ventures never seemed to pan out. There was always a bad market, or a flaky investor, or red tape. So, my venue supported us. My sweat equity paid for his image. 2 days before the anniversary, I was in the kitchen of the main house, going over invoices. Sarah, Mark called out from the bedroom. Have you seen my cufflinks? The gold ones? Top drawer, left side, I shouted back, not looking up from the pile of bills. The roof of the barn needed patching, and the quote was $3,000 more than I expected. Mark walked into the kitchen. He looked immaculate. He always did. Meanwhile, I was wearing a stained t-shirt and jeans with a hole in the knee. You look nice, I said, smiling tiredly. Big meeting? Huge, he said, checking his reflection in the microwave door. Meeting with the Vanderbilt Group. If I land this, Sarah, everything changes. We're talking millions in capital. That's amazing, honey. I stood up and hugged him. He smelled of expensive soap. I smelled of bleach. You're going to crush it. He pulled away a little too quickly. I might be late tonight. Dinner with the partners. Don't wait up. Okay, I said. Oh, by the way, the property tax bill came. It's steep this year. Mark waved a hand dismissively. Put it on the joint card. I'll handle it when this deal closes. I watched him leave. I watched him get into the Mercedes S-Class that was leased in my name because his credit score was too low. I felt a swell of pride. He was trying. He was working hard for us. Later that afternoon, I was doing laundry. I emptied the pockets of his gray trousers before throwing them in the wash. A crumpled piece of paper fell out. I smoothed it out on the dryer. It was a receipt. From Tiffany and Company. My heart did a little skip. Our anniversary was in 2 days. He had bought something. I squinted at the total. $12,500. I gasped. $12,000? We didn't have $12,000 for jewelry. The barn roof needed fixing. The taxes were due. But then, a wave of softness washed over me. He must have closed a deal he hadn't told me about yet. He wanted to surprise me. He knew I had been feeling dowdy lately, working myself to the bone. He wanted to make me feel special. I carefully folded the receipt and put it back in his pocket. I didn't want to ruin the surprise. I looked at myself in the mirror above the utility sink. I looked tired. My eyes had bags under them. My hands were rough from gardening. He loves me, I told myself. He sees past the mess. He sees me. I decided right then to surprise him back. I couldn't afford a $12,000 gift. But I had been eyeing that vintage Omega watch at the antique store in town. It was $800. I had been saving $50 here, $20 there, hiding it in a coffee can in the pantry. If I skipped getting the truck's transmission serviced this month, I could afford it. That night, alone in the big house, I cooked a simple dinner and ate it at the kitchen island. I scrolled through my phone. I saw a post on Facebook from Mark's mother, Barbara. Barbara and I had a complicated relationship. She thought I was rustic. She thought Mark deserved a woman who lunched, not a woman who mulched. The photo was of Barbara at a spa. The caption read, "Wonderful day of pampering. Thank you to my successful son for treating his mother right." I frowned. Mark had told me money was tight. He had told me we couldn't afford to fix the AC in the guest cottage. But he was sending his mother to a luxury spa? I brushed it off. It's his mom, I thought. He's a good son. That's a good quality. God, I was naive. The next day, the day before the anniversary, Mark called me from the office. "Hey babe," he said. His voice sounded tight. "I have to go up to Charlotte for the night. Last-minute due diligence on the Vanderbilt deal." "Oh," I said, disappointed. "But tomorrow is our anniversary." I know. I'll be back by the afternoon. I promise. We'll celebrate. It's for us, Sarah. This deal is for us." "Okay," I said. "Drive safe. I love you." "Yeah. You too." Click. He hung up first. He always hung up first. I spent that night alone, too. But I didn't mind. I spent the evening polishing the silver, ironing my navy blue dress, and fantasizing about the look on his face when I gave him the watch. I thought about the receipt in his pocket. A diamond. Maybe a necklace? Or earrings? I went to bed early, hugging his pillow. It smelled like him. I fell asleep dreaming of our future. A future where the roof didn't leak, where Mark's business finally took off, where we could maybe, finally, talk about having kids. I was 45, but maybe adoption was an option. We had never really had the money or the stability. If I had known what he was actually doing in Charlotte that night, if I had known he was staying in the presidential suite of the Ritz-Carlton with Chloe, ordering room service on my credit card, laughing about his crazy sister, I would have burned the house down right then and there. But I didn't know. I was the loyal wife. The supportive partner. The invisible backbone of the Jenkins family. I woke up on the morning of our anniversary with a smile on my face. I texted him, "Happy 15 years. Can't wait to see you." He didn't reply for 4 hours. When he finally did, it was a text, "Huge day. Meetings running late. Dinner might be rushed. Love you." That's when I decided to go to the bistro. To surprise him. To make it easier for him so he wouldn't have to rush home and then rush out. I drove the old Ford Explorer into the city. The transmission clunked every time I shifted gears. "Just one more month," I promised the car. "Then I'll fix you." I parked 3 blocks away to save on valet parking. I walked to the restaurant in my heels, dodging puddles. And then I walked in. And I saw the ring. It wasn't a necklace. It wasn't earrings. It was a ring. A ring for another woman. And the receipt, the $12,500. It was my money. I realized it in a flash of horror as I stood in that bistro. The joint account. The business expenses. He hadn't landed a deal. He was draining me dry to court his next victim. The perfection was a lie. The business was a lie. My marriage was a lie. The only thing that was real was the house. My grandmother's house. And as I drove away from the bistro, tears finally blurring my vision, I realized that was exactly what he wanted. He didn't just want to leave me. He wanted to take Willow Creek with him. I drove back to Willow Creek in a daze. The 40-minute drive felt like 40 seconds and 40 years all at once. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. I kept hearing that word in my head, bouncing around like a ricocheting bullet. Sister. 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 I pulled into the gravel driveway. The moon was reflecting off the lake. The willow trees were swaying in the wind. It was so peaceful, so beautiful. It was the only place on earth where I felt safe. And he had brought his filth into it. I didn't go inside immediately. I sat on the hood of my car, staring at the house. My house. About 20 minutes later, headlights swept across the gravel. The Mercedes. He was here. Mark got out of the car. He had taken off his jacket. His tie was loosened. He looked frantic. He saw me sitting on the hood of the Explorer and stopped. He took a deep breath, put on his negotiating face, the face he used when he was trying to charm a building inspector, and walked toward me. "Sarah," he said, his voice low and soothing. "Baby. Thank God you're home." I didn't say anything. I just watched him. "Look," he said, holding his hands up. "I know what that looked like. I know you're upset. But you have to let me explain." "Explain," I said. "Explain how I became your sister." "It's the deal, Sarah." He stepped closer, his eyes wide and pleading. "The Vanderbilt deal. Chloe, she's not just some girl. She's George Vanderbilt's daughter. The billionaire investor." "So you're sleeping with her for money?" I asked. "Is that the explanation? You're a prostitute now?" Mark winced. "Don't use words like that. It's leverage. Look, George is old-fashioned. He wants to invest in a family man but not a married man with baggage. He thinks men with wives are distracted. But he loves the idea of a man taking care of his sick family. It's a narrative, Sarah. It's just a story we're selling to get the capital." I stared at him. "A story? You proposed to her, Mark. You gave her a ring." "A prop," he insisted. "It's all theater. Once the money hits the account, we're talking $5 million, Sarah. I break it off with her. I tell her it's not working out. And we keep the money. We fix the barn. We go to Italy. We buy you a new car. It's for us." He actually believed it. Or he thought I was stupid enough to believe it. "And the sister part?" I asked, sliding off the hood of the car to stand face to face with him. Why am I the crazy sister? Why am I in a facility? Mark looked away for a second, then back at me. Because, well, you live here. If she comes here, I can't hide you. So I had to say you live here because I'm your guardian. Because you're unwell. It explains why you're always around, why you're managing the property. It makes me look like a saint, Sarah. A hero taking care of his mentally ill sibling. A hero. He was using my hard work, my presence in my own home, as a prop for his sainthood. And what happens, I asked quietly, when she wants to meet this sister? She won't, Mark said quickly. I told her you're dangerous when you're off your meds. She's terrified of you. She won't come near the place. She saw me tonight, Mark. I didn't look crazy. I looked like your wife. I fixed it, he said. After you left. I told her you were having an episode. That you think everyone is your husband. That it's a symptom of your condition. My stomach turned. He had turned my righteous anger into a symptom of insanity. Get out, I said. Mark blinked. What? Get out of my house. Pack a bag. Leave. Sarah, be reasonable. I can't leave. If I leave, Chloe might find out. She tracks my location sometimes. I have to stay here to maintain the cover. I don't care about your cover. I want a divorce. Mark's face hardened. The charm evaporated. The negotiating face was gone, replaced by something uglier. Something cold and reptilian. You don't want to do that, Sarah, he said softly. Try me. This is a community property state, he said, taking a step toward me. He was looming over me now. Everything we have is shared. This house? The business? It's half mine. If you divorce me now, I'll force a sale. I'll burn this place to the ground legally. You'll lose the farm. You'll lose the legacy. Is that what you want? I froze. He knew my weak spot. Willow Creek was the only thing I had left of my family. And besides, he sneered, who's going to believe you? You're the rustic, uneducated wife who spends her days playing in the mud. I'm the respected developer. I have witnesses, Sarah. I have doctors on payroll who can testify to your instability. If you try to blow up this deal, I will have you committed for real. I stepped back. The threat hung in the air like toxic smoke. Just then, another car pulled up. It was a Lexus. Barbara. Of course. She hopped out of the car, looking spry for a woman of 70. She was wearing a tracksuit and holding a casserole dish. Mark, she called out. I came as soon as you texted. Is everything okay? She walked up to us, looking between Mark and me. She saw the tears on my face and the cold look on Mark's. She found out about Chloe, Mark said, sounding like a petulant child telling on a bully. She wants to ruin the deal, Mom. Barbara turned to me. Her face crinkled in disappointment. Oh, Sarah. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic? I choked out. He proposed to another woman. He told her I'm his crazy sister. Barbara sighed, adjusting her casserole. It's business, Sarah. Do you think building an empire is clean? Mark is doing what needs to be done to secure your future. You should be grateful he's so resourceful. Grateful? I couldn't believe my ears. He's cheating on me, Barbara. It's not cheating if it's for the family, she said dismissively. Men have needs, and business has requirements. Chloe is necessary. She's a means to an end. Once Mark gets the funding, she'll be gone. You need to stop being so selfish. Think about the family. I am his family. I screamed. Then act like it. Barbara snapped. Stop whining and play your part. If Mark says you're the sister, be the sister. It's just a role. Actors do it all the time. Don't let your ego destroy millions of dollars. I looked at them. Mother and son. Standing there in my driveway, under my grandmother's willow trees, gaslighting me into oblivion. They looked at me like I was the crazy one. Like I was the unreasonable one for not wanting my husband to have a fiancé. I realized then that screaming wouldn't work. Crying wouldn't work. They didn't care about my feelings. They only cared about money and control. If I kicked him out now, he would fight me for the house. He would drag it out in court. He might even win, given how much of the business paperwork he handled. I needed to be smarter. I needed to be colder. I took a deep breath. I wiped my face. I looked at the ground, then back up at Mark. "Okay," I said softly. Mark's eyes lit up. "Okay?" I don't want to lose the farm," I lied. "And we do need the money." Mark exhaled, a massive sigh of relief. He grabbed my shoulders. "That's my girl. That's my Sarah. You're smart. You see the big picture." "But," I added, "I need time. I can't sleep in the same bed with you right now." "Of course," Mark said magnanimously. "I'll take the guest room. Just play along for a few weeks? Until the check clears?" 2 weeks, I said. "That's it. Deal." He kissed my forehead. It made my skin crawl. "I love you, sis." He winked. Barbara patted my arm. "Good choice, dear." I brought lasagna. I watched them walk into my house. Into my kitchen. I stayed outside for another minute. I wasn't submitting. I was strategizing. "Play the part," Barbara had said. "Be the sister." Okay. I would play the part. But they forgot one thing about crazy people. They're unpredictable. And they forgot one thing about sisters. They know all the secrets. I walked into the house, not as a wife, but as a spy behind enemy lines. The war had just begun. That night, I waited until the house was silent. Mark was snoring in the guest room, a sound that used to comfort me but now sounded like a chainsaw cutting through my life. Barbara had gone home, satisfied that she had managed the situation. I crept down the hallway to the study. This was Mark's domain. He always kept the door locked, saying it was sensitive client confidentiality. I knew where the key was. It was taped to the bottom of his unsuspecting mother's potted fern in the hallway. He wasn't as clever as he thought. I unlocked the door and slipped inside. The room smelled of stale cigar smoke and secrets. I didn't turn on the overhead light, I used the flashlight on my phone. I went straight to the filing cabinet. Locked. Of course. I grabbed a letter opener from the desk and jimmied the lock. It was a cheap cabinet. It popped open with a metallic clunk. I started flipping through the folders. Invoices. Tax returns. Vendor contracts. I pulled out the file marked Willow Creek expenses. I opened it and felt the blood drain from my face for the second time that night. There were withdrawals. Hundreds of them. $500, cash. $1,200, consultant fee, consultant, Chloe V., $3,000, travel expenses, the Ritz-Carlton. $12,500, Tiffany and Company. He wasn't just using his own money. He was draining the venue's operating account. The money I made from weddings. The money for the roof repair. The money for the taxes. It was all gone. The account balance, which should have been around $45,000 after the busy spring season, was sitting at $214. $214. I felt sick. I covered my mouth to keep from sobbing. He had stolen everything. Every bouquet I arranged, every toilet I scrubbed, every bride I consoled, it all went to fund his affair with Chloe. But I kept digging. I needed more than just theft. I needed a smoking gun. I found a folder at the very back, labeled Project Phoenix. I opened it. Inside were blueprints. I shone my light on them. It was a blueprint for Willow Creek. But it didn't look like my farm. The barn was gone. The weeping willows were gone. In their place were 3 high-rise condo buildings. The Jenkins luxury estates. He wasn't planning to fix the farm with the Vanderbilt money. He was planning to bulldoze it. He was going to pave over my grandmother's garden. He was going to destroy the lake. I flipped the page. There was a timeline. Phase 1, Secure Capital, Vanderbilt. Phase 2, Transfer Deed. Phase 3, Relocation of Current Resident. Relocation of Current Resident. That was me. I looked for the details on Phase 3. I found a stapled document underneath the blueprints. It was a draft email addressed to a lawyer I didn't know. Subject: Involuntary Commitment Procedures/Power of Attorney. I read the text, my hands shaking so hard the paper rattled. Given my sister's increasing instability and history of hallucinations, I need to know the fastest route to obtain full medical and financial power of attorney. Once she is placed in the care facility, looking at Shady Grove long-term unit, I will need to liquidate her assets to pay for her care. Please advise on how to expedite the competency hearing. I had to sit down on the floor. He wasn't just going to divorce me. He wasn't just going to steal the house. He was going to lock me away. He was building a case that I was insane, the episodes, the confusion, so he could legally commit me to a mental institution, take control of my assets as my guardian, and then sell the farm to build his condos. The sister lie wasn't just a cover for cheating. It was the foundation of a trap. A trap designed to erase me completely. I thought about the pills he had been giving me lately. Vitamins, he called them. You look tired, babe, take these. I had been feeling groggy. Foggy. Forgetful. My God. He was drugging me. To make me seem unstable. To make the symptoms real. I felt a surge of pure, cold rage. It replaced the fear. It replaced the heartbreak. I took out my phone and started photographing everything. Every page. Every receipt. Every blueprint. The email draft. I put everything back exactly as I found it. I locked the cabinet. I locked the door. I went back to the bedroom, but I didn't go to sleep. I went to the bathroom and opened the medicine cabinet. I found the bottle of vitamins he kept there for me. I dumped them into a tissue and hid them in my pocket to have them analyzed later. Then, I replaced them with actual multivitamins I had in my travel bag. I looked at myself in the mirror. You want a crazy sister? I thought. I'll give you a crazy sister. But first, I needed allies. I needed someone who knew the law better than Mark's shady lawyers. I waited until morning. When Mark woke up, I was in the kitchen, making pancakes. I forced a smile. Good morning, brother, I said. He looked at me, surprised but pleased. Morning. You seem better. I took my meds, I said, pointing to the vitamin bottle on the counter. I want to help. With the deal. That's great, Mark said, digging into the pancakes. That's really great, Sarah. Chloe might come over for dinner later this week. You think you can handle it? I can handle it, I said. I'll be the best sister ever. As soon as he left for work, probably to see Chloe, I got in my car. I didn't go to the farm supply store. I drove straight to the city, to a dusty old office building on King Street. I was going to see Frank Miller. Frank Miller was a relic. He was my father's friend, a lawyer who still used a typewriter for certain forms and smelled permanently of old leather and pipe tobacco. He wasn't a shark like the lawyers on TV. He was a bear. Slow to anger, but if you poked him, he would tear you apart. I sat in his office, the stack of printed photos from my phone on his desk. Frank put on his reading glasses. He went through the documents in silence. He read the email draft about the involuntary commitment. He looked at the bank statements. He looked at the blueprints. Finally, he took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Sarah," he rumbled. His voice was gravel. "Your husband is a son of a bitch." "I know," I said. "I want to divorce him. I want him out of my house today." Frank sighed. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "He's stealing from me. He's plotting to commit me." "He's plotting," Frank corrected. "He hasn't done it yet." "And the money?" "South Carolina is an equitable distribution state. Unless we can prove fraud, and I mean criminal, malicious fraud, he has a claim to the appreciation of the property value during the marriage. If you file for divorce today, he freezes the accounts. He ties up the farm in litigation for years. He'll claim you're mentally unstable, just like he planned, and use the sister story to muddy the waters. He might even get temporary guardianship while the courts sort it out." "So what do I do?" I felt desperate. "I can't live with him." "We need to trap him," Frank said. He leaned forward. "We need him to commit a crime that is undeniable. We need him to sign something, or say something on record, that proves his intent to defraud." He pointed to the sister documents. "This lie," Frank said. "This is his weakness. He's defrauding the Vanderbilt family. That's wire fraud if he accepts their money under false pretenses. That's investment fraud. And if he tries to get you to sign anything as his sister, or if he forges your signature, that's a felony." Frank opened a drawer and pulled out a small device. It looked like a pen. "Voice recorder," he said. "South Carolina is a one-party consent state. As long as you are part of the conversation, you can record it without his permission." I took the pen. It felt heavy. "Go home," Frank said. "Play the role. Let him think he's winning. Let him bring the girl over. Let him dig his grave. We need him to get comfortable. We need him to make a mistake." "He wants me to meet her," I said. "He wants me to play the crazy sister at dinner." Frank smiled, a grim, wolfish smile. "Then give him an Oscar-winning performance." "But Sarah?" "Don't sign anything. And find out where the money is going. If he's buying a penthouse, there's a paper trail." I left Frank's office feeling a strange mixture of fear and power. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was an undercover agent in my own life. I stopped at a hardware store on the way home. I bought 3 nanny cams. Tiny, hidden cameras that looked like USB chargers. I spent the afternoon installing them. One in the kitchen. One in the living room. One in the study, pointed directly at his desk. When Mark came home that evening, I was sitting on the porch, staring blankly at the lake. "Practicing." "Sarah?" he asked. I blinked slowly, turning to him. "The willows are crying today, Mark." He looked at me with a mixture of pity and satisfaction. Yeah, they are. Listen, Chloe is coming over tomorrow night. For dinner. I need you to be, eccentric. But harmless." "Eccentric," I repeated. "Like, soup?" "What?" He frowned. "Sure. Whatever. Just wear something old. Don't wear makeup. Make sure she sees that you need us." "Okay," I whispered. I went to my room. I looked at the nanny cam feed on my phone. It was working. The trap was set. The next evening, I prepared for the performance of my life. I didn't shower. I put baby oil in my hair to make it look greasy. I wore a mismatched outfit, an oversized gray cardigan with a stain on the lapel, and floral pajama pants tucked into rain boots. I removed all my makeup, letting the dark circles under my eyes stand out. I looked deranged. I looked exactly like the burden Mark described. I was cooking when they arrived. I made a pot of beef stew, but I deliberately made it messy. Flour on the counter, vegetable peels on the floor. I heard the front door open. "Welcome to the asylum," Mark joked nervously. I heard Chloe's giggle. It sounded innocent, nervous. They walked into the kitchen. "Sarah," Mark said, his voice overly loud, like he was talking to a deaf person or a toddler. "Look who's here. This is Chloe. My friend." I turned around slowly, holding a wooden spoon dripping with gravy. Chloe's eyes widened. She took in my greasy hair, my boots, the chaotic kitchen. "Hi," she said softly. "It's so nice to meet you, Sarah. Mark talks about you all the time." I stared at her. I didn't blink. "He says I'm expensive," I said flatly. Mark laughed, a high-pitched, panicked sound. "Oh, she's joking. Sarah has a unique sense of humor. Don't you, sis?" He put a protective arm around Chloe, steering her away from me. "Why don't we sit in the dining room? I'll bring the wine." We sat at the dining table. The nanny cam in the corner was blinking its tiny, invisible red light. The voice recorder pen was in my pocket. Mark poured wine for himself and Chloe. He poured me a glass of milk. "Alcohol interferes with her meds," he explained to Chloe. I drank the milk. It was warm. I wanted to vomit. "So, Sarah," Chloe said, trying to be polite. "Mark says you love gardening? This property is beautiful." "It was grandmother's," I said. "She haunts the barn." Chloe choked on her wine. "Excuse me?" "She haunts the barn," I repeated, widening my eyes. "She doesn't like strangers. She doesn't like liars." Mark kicked me under the table. Hard. "Sarah helps with the landscaping," he corrected. "She finds it therapeutic. Keeps her calm." "Mark is a good brother," Chloe said, reaching out to touch his hand. "It's amazing what you do for her, Mark. Most men would have, put her in a home." "I could never abandon family," Mark said solemnly. "It's a burden, sure. Financial, emotional. But she's my sister." I gripped my fork. I wanted to stab him in the eye. But I held back. I needed more. "How is the fundraising going?" I asked suddenly, my voice sharpening. "For the condos?" Mark froze. "What condos?" Chloe asked. "The repairs," Mark said quickly. Sarah gets confused. She thinks we're building castles in the sky. It's part of the delusion. "No," I said, leaning forward. "The condos. Project Phoenix. The blueprints in the desk." "Are you going to tear down the barn, Mark? Will grandmother be mad?" Mark was sweating now. "Sarah, eat your stew." "I saw the papers," I continued, looking at Chloe. "He needs $5 million. Did you give him the money yet?" Chloe looked uncomfortable. "My father is reviewing the proposal." "But Mark, you said the money was to restore the historical integrity of the estate?" "It is." Mark insisted. "Sarah she sees things that aren't there. Last week she thought the mailman was a CIA agent." He glared at me. "Shut up," his eyes screamed. I decided to pivot. I needed to plant a seed of doubt that was tangible. "Mark," I said, pointing at his wrist. "Is that the Rolex?" Mark looked down at his wrist. He wasn't wearing a watch. "I'm not wearing a watch, Sarah." "No," I said innocently. "The one you bought. With the receipt. $12,000. Did you lose it? Or did you give it to her?" I pointed at Chloe. Chloe looked at her hand. She wasn't wearing a watch. But she was wearing the diamond ring. "He didn't give me a watch," Chloe said, confused. "Oh," I said. "Maybe he gave it to the other sister. The one in Charlotte." Mark stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Okay. I think Sarah is tired. She's starting to spiral. I need to give her the evening meds." He came over and grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. "Come on, Sarah. Bedtime." He dragged me toward the hallway. As he pushed me into my bedroom, he hissed in my ear. "You shut your mouth. You're ruining everything. One more word, and I swear to God, I'll drive you to the psych ward tonight myself." He slammed the door and locked it from the outside. I stood in the dark bedroom. My heart was racing. I pulled the recorder pen out of my pocket. I stopped the recording. I had him threatening me. I had him admitting to the lies. But more importantly, I had seen Chloe's face when I mentioned the other sister and the money. She was suspicious. I went to the window. I watched them leave about an hour later. Mark was walking her to her car. They were arguing. Chloe was waving her hands. She didn't kiss him goodbye. I smiled. The cracks were forming. But I knew Mark. When he was cornered, he became dangerous. He had locked me in. He was getting desperate. I needed to get to Chloe. Without Mark. And I needed to do it before he forced me to sign away the farm. I unlocked my phone. I had taken a picture of Chloe's driver's license when she left her purse unattended in the kitchen for 10 seconds. I had her address. Tomorrow, the crazy sister was going to pay a house call. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, I'm Sarah, the woman whose husband tried to gaslight her into being his crazy sister so he could marry a heiress. We left off at that disastrous dinner where I planted the seeds of doubt in Chloe's mind. But seeds need water to grow, and I was about to bring a thunderstorm. I knew Mark's schedule better than he knew himself. I knew that on Tuesday mornings, he claimed to be at site inspections, but thanks to the GPS tracker I'd put on the Mercedes, a little trick Frank Miller taught me, I knew he was actually at a high-end yoga studio in the Pearl District, likely waiting to pick up Chloe. He wasn't there yet. Perfect. I parked my rusted Ford Explorer between a Porsche and a Tesla. I felt like a stain on a white tablecloth, but I didn't care. I pulled my hoodie up. I wasn't wearing my crazy sister costume today. I was wearing clean jeans, a blazer, and the most dangerous weapon I owned, a manila folder filled with bank statements. I walked into Zenith Yoga. The air smelled of eucalyptus and money. The receptionist looked at me with that polite suspicion people reserve for trespassers, but I breezed past her toward the locker rooms just as a class was letting out. And there she was. Chloe. She looked radiant, flushed from exercise, holding a $100 water bottle. She was laughing with a friend. When she saw me leaning against the wall, her smile died instantly. She looked terrified. Mark had done a good job painting me as a monster. "Sarah," she whispered, clutching her yoga mat like a shield. What are you doing here?" "Mark said you were resting." "Mark says a lot of things," I said, my voice steady and calm. "Can we talk?" 5 minutes. Private. I can't," she stammered, looking toward the door. "Mark is picking me up." "I know," I said. "That's why we have to be quick. Unless you want to ask him about the $12,000 Tiffany receipt again?" That hit the nerve. I saw the doubt flicker in her eyes. She nodded and led me to a quiet corner of the lounge. "He told me you're dangerous," Chloe said, keeping her distance. "He said you might snap." "Look at me, Chloe," I said gently. "Do I look crazy? Or do I look exhausted?" I opened the folder. I didn't hand it to her, I placed it on the bench between us. "Mark told you I'm his sister," I started. "He told you I'm a financial burden. He told you his wife died. Correct?" Chloe nodded slowly. This is our marriage certificate, I said, pointing to the first document. Dated 15 years ago. No divorce filed. No death certificate. And this? I flipped the page. This is the deed to Willow Creek Estate. It's in my name. Sarah Jenkins. Inherited from my grandmother. Chloe stared at the papers. Her hands were shaking. And this, I said, revealing the killer blow. This is a credit card statement. Your credit card statement, I believe? Mark used it to pay for a spa day at the sanctuary last week? Yes, Chloe whispered. He said it was a business gift for a client. I pulled out the screenshot from Facebook. Barbara, Mark's mother, in a robe at the sanctuary, holding a cucumber water. Caption, thanks to my son for the treat. He spent your money on his mother, I said. Just like he spent my money on your ring. Chloe looked up at me. The fear was gone, replaced by a dawn of horror. The ring, you said he didn't buy it. He bought it with the money meant for the roof of my barn, I said. Chloe, I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to warn you. You are a project. Project Phoenix. He doesn't love you. He loves your father's capital. And once he gets it, he'll do to you exactly what he's doing to me. What is he doing to you? She asked, her voice trembling. He's trying to commit me, I said. He's trying to put me in an institution so he can sell my farm. And if you marry him, if you merge your assets, you're next. Chloe sat down on the bench. She looked like she was going to be sick. He keeps asking about my trust fund release date. He said we need it for the renovations. There are no renovations, I said. Only condos. I handed her a small flash drive. This has copies of everything. The blueprints, the emails, the bank transfers. Don't take my word for it. Look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie, Chloe. People do. I saw Mark's Mercedes pull up through the glass front doors. He's here, I said. You have a choice, Chloe. You can get in that car and be his victim. Or you can help me bury him. Chloe looked at the car, then back at me. Her jaw tightened. She wasn't the airhead Mark thought she was. She was a woman who had just realized she was being played. What do you need me to do? She asked. Be the fiancé, I said. Be the perfect, rich, oblivious fiancé. Let him think he's won. Until the engagement party. The party is in 3 days, she said. Exactly, I smiled. 3 days. That's all the time we need. I slipped out the back exit just as Mark walked in the front. My heart was pounding, but for the first time in months, it wasn't from fear. It was from adrenaline. I had turned his pawn into my queen. The next 2 days were a psychological minefield. Mark was ramping up the gaslighting. He was desperate. The engagement party, which he had spun to me as a fundraising gala, was his deadline. He needed me out of the way, or at least incapacitated, so he could announce his engagement to Chloe on my property without me causing a scene. He started pushing the vitamins aggressively. You look pale, Sarah, he'd say, handing me 2 blue pills with a glass of water. Dr. Evans said you need to take these for the chemical imbalance. Dr. Evans didn't exist. I knew that. The pills were sedatives. Strong ones. I pretended to take them. I'd slip them under my tongue, or drop them into my sleeve, and then flush them down the toilet the moment he turned his back. But on Thursday, the day before the party, I made a mistake. I left my coffee unattended on the counter while I went to answer the door for a delivery, a massive tent being set up on the lawn for the gala. When I came back, Mark was stirring his own coffee, looking at his phone. Drink up, babe, he said. We have a lot of cleaning to do. I drank the coffee. 20 minutes later, the world started to tilt. I was in the hallway, carrying a stack of linens, when the floor seemed to rush up to meet me. My vision blurred at the edges. My tongue felt thick, like it was too big for my mouth. He drugged the coffee. I stumbled, dropping the linens. Mark was there instantly. He didn't look worried. He looked clinical. "Whoa, easy there, sis," he said, catching me. His grip was tight. "Having another spell?" "You." I slurred. "You put something." "Shoo," he soothed, dragging me toward the bedroom. "You're just tired. You're confused. This is exactly why you need the facility, Sarah. You can't even walk straight." He dumped me onto the bed. "Sleep it off. I'll handle the prep." I lay there, listening to the door lock click shut. My body felt like lead. But my mind was screaming. "Fight it. Fight it." I crawled to the bathroom attached to the master suite. I forced myself to vomit. I washed my face with cold water, slapping my cheeks until they stung. I wasn't going to let him win. I needed proof. Hard proof. I remembered the hidden camera in the kitchen. If he had spiked my drink, it was on tape. I pulled out my phone. My fingers were clumsy, but I managed to open the app. I rewound the footage to 20 minutes ago. There it was. Mark, standing by the island. He took a small vial from his pocket. He tipped a clear liquid into my mug. He stirred it with his finger, wiped his finger on his pants, and smiled. A cold, predatory smile. "Got you." I saved the clip. I sent it to Frank Miller. Then I sent it to Chloe with the caption, "Be careful what you eat tonight." But the terror wasn't over. Later that afternoon, Mark unlocked the door. "Feeling better?" he asked. "A little," I lied, keeping my voice groggy. "Good. Because we need to go to the notary. For the property line adjustment papers." The trap. This was it. He was going to try to get me to sign the power of attorney or the deed transfer. "Okay," I said. "Let me drive. I need to clear my head." "Absolutely not," Mark laughed. "You're in no condition." "Please, Mark," I pleaded, playing the part. "Just down the driveway? I feel so trapped." He hesitated, then shrugged. "Fine. But just to the mailbox. If you swerve even once, I'm taking the wheel." I got into the driver's seat of the Ford. Mark got in the passenger side. As I started the engine, I saw him reach into his pocket and pull out a small remote. My heart stopped. A remote? I put the car in drive. We started rolling down the long gravel driveway. The lake was to our left. "Faster," Mark said. "Let's get this over with." I accelerated slightly. 20 miles per hour, 30 miles per hour. Suddenly, the steering wheel locked. I tried to turn, but it wouldn't budge. The car was drifting toward the lake. "Mark!" I screamed. "The wheel!" Mark didn't reach for the wheel. He sat back, gripping the door handle, bracing himself. He had tampered with the car. He wanted an accident. A confused woman driving into a lake. A tragic accident. I slammed on the brakes. Nothing. The pedal went to the floor. Panic, raw and electric, surged through me. We were 50 feet from the water. Think, Sarah. Think. The emergency brake. It was a manual pedal on the left. I stomped on it with both feet, putting all my weight into it. The rear tires locked up. The car skidded sideways, gravel spraying like bullets. We spun 180 degrees. The force threw me against the door. The car came to a halt 3 feet from the edge of the bank. The engine stalled. Silence. I looked at Mark. He looked disappointed. "My God, Sarah," he yelled, feigning shock. "Are you trying to kill us? I told you you weren't fit to drive." He jumped out of the car. That's it. No more driving. No more freedom. You're dangerous. I sat there, shaking. I looked at the dashboard. The brake warning light had been disabled. He hadn't just tried to commit me. He had just tried to kill me. Or at least, stage a suicide attempt to expedite the commitment order. I got out of the car. My knees were weak, but my resolve was iron. You're right, Mark, I whispered, looking at the ground. I'm dangerous. I should be locked up. Mark exhaled, hiding a smile. I'm doing this for your own good, Sarah. Tomorrow, after the gala, we'll take you to Shady Grove. It's all arranged. Okay, I said. Just, let me have one last night? Let me see the party? I want to see the farm beautiful one last time. Mark looked at me. He saw a broken woman. He saw victory. Fine, he said. But you stay in your room until I call for you. And you take your meds. Double dose. I will, I promised. I walked back to the house. I went to the medicine cabinet. I took the bottle of sedatives. I went to the kitchen. Mark was outside dealing with the tow truck for my car. I found the bottle of expensive scotch he was saving for the party toast. I uncorked it. I crushed 20 of the sedative pills into a fine powder. I poured the powder into the scotch. I shook it gently until it dissolved. You want me sedated, Mark? I thought. Let's see how you handle a taste of your own medicine. But I wouldn't let him drink it yet. Oh no. That was for the grand finale. The morning of the engagement party, or the Save the Farm Gala, as Mark had cynically named it on the invitations, dawned gray and humid. The air was thick with impending rain, and with the suffocating weight of Mark's ego. Willow Creek was unrecognizable. Mark had hired a staging company to elevate the property. There were white silk tents, crystal chandeliers hanging from the ancient oak trees, and a string quartet setting up by the gazebo. It looked like a spread in vogue. It looked expensive. It looked like a lie. I watched from my bedroom window. I was a prisoner in my own home, locked in until Mark decided it was time to trot out the crazy sister. Barbara arrived at noon. I could hear her voice drifting up from the foyer, shrill and excited. Oh, Mark, it's magnificent. The Vanderbilts will be so impressed. George is flying in on his chopper. It's almost done, Mom, Mark replied. Tonight, we seal the deal. Sarah signs the transfer during the toast. I told her it's a guest book, and then tomorrow morning, she's gone. Is she manageable? Barbara asked. She's terrified, Mark laughed. She thinks she almost drove into the lake yesterday. She's ready to sign anything just to be safe. I gritted my teeth. Keep laughing, Mark. At 4 p.m., Mark came to unlock my door. He was wearing a tuxedo. He looked like James Bond, if James Bond was a sociopath. Here, he said, tossing a dress onto the bed. It wasn't a gown. It was a shapeless, beige linen dress. It looked like a potato sack. Wear this, he ordered. No makeup. Hair down and messy. I want you to look fragile. Sympathetic. When George Vanderbilt sees you, he needs to think, that poor man, carrying such a heavy cross. Okay, Mark, I said softly. And take these. He handed me 2 more blue pills. I put them in my mouth, took a sip of water, and pretended to swallow. As soon as he turned to check his reflection in the mirror, I spit them into my hand and slipped them into my pocket. Good girl, he said. Stay here. I'll come get you for the sister's tribute speech at 7 o'clock. He left. As soon as the lock clicked, I sprang into action. I stripped off the beige dress. I kicked it into the corner. Underneath my mattress, I had hidden a garment bag I'd smuggled in days ago. Inside was my dress. It was a deep emerald green silk gown. It was tailored to perfection. It was bold. It was powerful. It was the kind of dress a woman wears when she owns the room, not when she's cleaning it. I sat at my vanity. I applied my makeup, sharp eyeliner, red lipstick, contour that highlighted my cheekbones. I pulled my hair up into an elegant, complex chignon. I put on the vintage earrings my grandmother left me, real diamonds, not the glass Mark thought they were. I looked in the mirror. Sarah the victim was gone. Sarah the CEO of Willow Creek had arrived. I checked my phone. A text from Chloe, "My dad is here. We are ready. The USB is with the DJ." A text from Frank Miller, "Sheriff is on standby at the perimeter. Don't start until I give the signal." I waited. The sounds of the party drifted up. Laughter. Clinking glasses. The string quartet playing Vivaldi. It sounded like a celebration. They had no idea it was a funeral for Mark's career. At 6:55 p.m., I put the beige dress over my gown. It was baggy enough to hide the silk underneath. I messed up my hair slightly, just enough to look disheveled, but kept the chignon secure underneath. I wiped the lipstick off, or rather, covered it with a bit of concealer that I could wipe away in one swipe. Mark opened the door. "It's time," he said. He looked at me with disgust. "God, you look pathetic." "Perfect." He grabbed my arm. "Remember the script. You thank everyone for coming. You say you love your brother and his new fiancée. You say you're tired and want to sign the papers to let him take care of things. Then you leave." "I remember," I whispered. "Don't embarrass me, Sarah. Or I swear." He didn't finish the threat. He didn't have to. We walked down the grand staircase. The house was filled with strangers, investors, real estate moguls, friends of the Vanderbilts. They all stopped talking as Mark led me down. I saw their eyes. They looked at Mark with admiration. Look at him, taking care of that poor woman. They looked at me with pity. Mark led me through the French doors out to the lawn. The tent was glowing. Hundreds of people. At the front table, I saw Chloe. She was wearing a stunning white dress. Next to her was an older man with silver hair, George Vanderbilt. Chloe looked at me. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw the beige sack, but then she gave me a microscopic nod. Mark led me to the stage. He took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, his charisma turned up to 11. "Thank you for being here tonight. As many of you know, this project, Project Phoenix, is close to my heart. Not just as a business venture, but as a way to secure the future for my family." He gestured to me with a sad smile. "My sister, Sarah, has had a hard few years. Her health, well, it's a struggle. But she's the heart of this estate. And tonight, she wanted to say a few words to bless the union between myself and the lovely Chloe, and to officially hand over the stewardship of Willow Creek to more capable hands." He handed me the microphone. He looked at me, his eyes cold and hard. "Stick to the script." I took the microphone. My hands weren't shaking. I looked out at the sea of faces. I saw Barbara in the front row, looking smug. I saw Chloe clutching her napkin. I looked at Mark. I smiled. And then, in one smooth motion, I reached up and pulled the pins from my hair. The messy bun fell away, revealing the sleek, elegant style. I grabbed the collar of the beige dress and ripped the Velcro seam I had sewn in. The sack fell to the floor. There I stood. In emerald green silk. Shoulders back. Head high. Red lips smiling. The crowd gasped. A ripple of shock went through the tent. Mark's jaw dropped. He stepped forward. "Sarah? What are you?" I spoke into the microphone. My voice was clear, strong, and rang out like a bell. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Jenkins. And I have a correction to make. I paused for effect. I am not Mark's sister. I am his wife of 15 years. The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear the crickets chirping in the distance. Even the string quartet stopped playing. Mark lunged for the microphone. She's having an episode. Cut the mic. Get the doctor. But I sidestepped him. Chloe, if you please? Chloe stood up. She walked to the DJ booth. Mark froze, confused. Chloe? Baby, what are you doing? Helping your wife, Chloe said into a handheld mic she had hidden under the table. She nodded to the DJ. The massive projection screen behind the stage, which was displaying a logo of Project Phoenix, flickered. Suddenly, a video appeared. It was grainy footage from a hidden camera. My kitchen. Mark's voice boomed over the speakers, clear and unmistakable. She's a cow, Mom. A rustic, useless cow. But she owns the land. Once I get the power of attorney, I'm shipping her off to Shady Grove. I'll keep her drugged until she signs. The crowd murmured. People started standing up. The video cut to another clip. Mark and Barbara. What about the Vanderbilt girl? Barbara asked in the video. Mark laughed, swirling a glass of wine. Chloe? She's a golden retriever. Dumb and eager to please. I marry her, merge the assets, get the $5 million from her daddy, and then, well, accidents happen. Maybe she has a breakdown too. George Vanderbilt stood up. His face was purple with rage. He looked at Mark. Mark was shaking his head, looking around wildly. Deepfake. That's AI. It's a fake video. Sarah made it. Did I make this too? I asked. The screen changed. It was the footage from the car. The dashboard showing the brake warning light disabled. Mark sitting back, letting the car drift toward the lake. The brakes are gone, Mark, my voice screamed in the video. Mark's face in the video was calm. Expectant. Waiting for the crash. The video ended with a document on the screen. A PDF of the involuntary commitment paperwork, with my forged signature already on it. I turned to Mark. He was small now. He wasn't James Bond. He was a rat trapped in a corner. You wanted to tell a story, Mark, I said into the mic, so I helped you finish it. The story of a man who tried to murder his wife's sanity to steal her inheritance. You bitch, Mark hissed. He looked like he was going to attack me. But then, George Vanderbilt was on the stage. He was a big man, and he shoved Mark so hard he flew back into the drum set. You called my daughter what? George roared. Mark scrambled up, bleeding from his lip. George, listen, it's out of context. Sarah is manipulative, she. Shut up. Chloe yelled. She walked up to Mark. She looked at the diamond ring on her finger. This is Sarah's grandmother's ring, Chloe said. You stole it. She pulled it off and threw it at him. It bounced off his chest. And you're fired, George Vanderbilt added. The deal is dead. And my lawyers will be in touch about the $50,000 deposit you embezzled. Mark looked around. The investors were leaving. The guests were filming with their phones. His empire of lies had collapsed in under 3 minutes. He turned to me. His eyes were full of hate. You think you won? He screamed. This house is still marital property. I'll burn you in court. I'll take half of everything. You can't prove. Actually, a deep voice came from the back. Frank Miller stepped out of the shadows. Beside him was the county sheriff and 2 deputies. We can prove quite a lot, Mr. Jenkins, Frank said. Attempted murder. Insurance fraud. Wire fraud. Forgery. And thanks to Mrs. Jenkins' excellent detective work, we have the toxicology report from her blood test yesterday confirming the presence of heavy sedatives. Mark looked at the police. He looked at the exit. He bolted. He jumped off the stage and ran toward the woods. "Get him," the sheriff yelled. But Mark didn't get far. He tripped over the train of the beige dress I had left on the floor. He fell face first into the mud. The deputies were on him in seconds. As they handcuffed him and dragged him up, muddy and screaming, he looked at me one last time. "I made you," he yelled. "You were nothing without me. Just a farm girl." I walked to the edge of the stage. I looked down at him. "I'm the farm girl who owns the farm," I said. "And you?" "You're just a trespasser." Wait, I missed the best part. Before the police dragged him away, there was one moment of pure, unadulterated justice. Right before he ran. When George Vanderbilt was yelling at him. "Barbara." She had rushed the stage. "Don't you touch my son," she screeched, hitting George with her purse. "It's that harlot's fault. She drove him to it. She's mentally ill." She turned to me, her eyes wild. "You ungrateful little wretch. After everything we did for you." I looked at my mother-in-law. For 15 years, I had cooked her Thanksgiving dinners. I had bought her gifts. I had listened to her criticize my clothes, my house, my life. "Barbara," I said calmly. "Did you enjoy your spa day?" She froze. "The one paid for with Chloe's credit card?" I continued. "That's credit card fraud, Barbara. Being an accessory to a felony." The sheriff stepped forward. "Mrs. Barbara Jenkins? We have a warrant for you too. Conspiracy to commit fraud and tampering with evidence." Barbara gasped. "Me? I didn't." "We have the audio," I said, holding up the recorder pen. "From the dinner. You telling Mark to make me disappear if I didn't sign." Barbara's face crumpled. She looked at Mark. "You said she was stupid. You said she wouldn't figure it out." And then, Chloe stepped up. Chloe, the golden retriever. The dumb girl. She walked up to Barbara. She didn't scream. She didn't yell. She simply raised her hand and delivered a slap that sounded like a pistol crack. It spun Barbara around. "That," Chloe said, her voice shaking with rage, "is for the cucumber water." The crowd erupted. It was chaos. It was madness. It was glorious. I watched as they were both led away, Mark in mud, Barbara in tears. The blue lights of the police cars flashed against the white silk tents. The guests were leaving, but they weren't looking at me with pity anymore. They were looking at me with respect. Frank Miller walked up to me on stage. He handed me a glass of champagne. To the sister, he winked. "No," I said, clinking my glass against his. To the wife. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings, but for the first time in my life, I enjoyed every meeting. Mark's bail was denied. The flight risk was too high, considering he had a fake passport hidden in his office, another discovery by Frank. The trial was short. The evidence was overwhelming. The video of him drugging my coffee was the nail in the coffin. Mark tried to plead insanity. He tried to claim that I was the abuser, that I had framed him. But his own text messages, his own emails, and the testimony of Chloe, who turned out to be a star witness, destroyed him. He was sentenced to 15 years for attempted murder, fraud, and grand larceny. Barbara got 5 years for conspiracy. But the real justice wasn't the prison time. It was the financial reckoning. Because Mark had used marital funds to commit crimes, Frank argued successfully that he had forfeited his share of the marital assets. The judge agreed. The Jenkins Luxury Estates LLC was dissolved. The penthouse he tried to buy? Seized. The Mercedes? Repossessed. And Willow Creek? The judge ruled that since the property was inherited and kept separate, mostly, and since Mark's attempts to claim it were based on fraud, it remained 100% mine. Not only that, but George Vanderbilt, impressed by my grit, and feeling guilty about his daughter almost marrying a monster, decided to invest. Not in condos, but in the venue. He wrote a check for the roof repairs. "Consider it an apology," he said. The fallout in our social circle was spectacular. All the friends who had looked down on me as Mark's rustic wife suddenly wanted to be my best friend. They sent flowers. They sent apologies. I sent them back. I didn't need fair-weather friends. I had a real friend now. Chloe. It sounds crazy, I know. Being friends with your husband's mistress, or fiancé. But trauma bonds you. We went to therapy. We drank wine, paid for by us, not stolen funds. Chloe told me that night in the bistro, when I walked in, she had felt a chill. I knew, she said. Deep down, I knew. His eyes, they weren't looking at me. They were looking through me. We burned Mark's clothes in a bonfire by the lake. It was very therapeutic. Watching his custom Italian suits turn to ash. It's been a year since the Save the Farm Gala. Willow Creek is thriving. We're booked solid for the next 2 years. I hired a new manager so I don't have to scrub toilets anymore, unless I want to. I bought a new truck. A brand new Ford F-150. I paid cash. I walk through the barn sometimes, looking at the new roof. I think about the girl who sat on the hood of her car, crying because she thought she was crazy. I'm not that girl anymore. I'm Sarah Jenkins. I'm 46. I'm divorced. I'm rich. And I'm the sole owner of my destiny. Mark writes me letters from prison sometimes. He asks for money for the commissary. He says he's changed. He says he misses his sister. I don't open them. I put them in a box labeled fertilizer. Because that's all he is to me now. Fertilizer. Shit that made me grow. So, to anyone watching this who feels like they're being erased, who feels like they're being gaslight, who feels like they're the crazy one, check the receipts. Check the bank accounts. And never, ever let anyone tell you who you are. You're not the sister. You're the wife. You're the owner. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a wedding to host. And this time, the groom is actually paying for the ring. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of justice served cold. Stay strong, ladies.